Hello and welcome to Saved by the Bel-Air After Show, the official podcast for the Reddit subreddit for Bel-Air, reddit.com/r/Bel-Air. Get on there and discuss the episode and talk about your thoughts on what we say about it. We want to get your feedback as well. All right, guys. So let's, of course, introduce who we got on the program today. As always, is myself, David Murphy, your host. Joining me this week. It always seems like it's a new combination. Hopefully, we can get the whole four together one of these days. But
maybe episode 4.
Maybe. Hey, wouldn't that be fitting? 4 for 4. I like it. Of course, we've got my man Bala Mahmood. How you doing, Bala?
Doing good. Happy to be here, like always.
Glad to have you back. And of course, Gyasi Clemens. Hello, Gyasi.
What's up? What's up? How you guys doing? Ready to talk about this episode?
Awesome.
Always.
Great. Yeah.
Okay.
Actually,
you Gyasi with the whole Bel-Air background. Okay.
No, we got to come right for the show, man. This is, a special occasion once a week.
Right, Gyasi's always bringing that professionalism.
No, now I know what you come with, like for the episode 4.
There you go. Yes, you got to step up. Is that group shot from this season or last season?
I think it actually may be from season 1. I was doing some research to find the season 2 picture, but I didn't find one that I liked as much as this cast photo. So I was like, let me just go with this cast photo.
Yeah, it's a nice photo. I know that Ashley looks a little bit younger in the shot. So I was like, oh, maybe this is a little bit.
I was gonna say that looks like a season 1 Carlton haircut.
Oh yeah. He got his little fade going on now.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Jeffrey's hair is also longer this season.
Oh,
who's
yeah,
that?
I'm saying
Jeffrey's hair is longer this season as well.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he had a little time in his free time to grow it out. He wasn't doing anything, wasn't working.
I was about to say, getting fired will have you getting your little ruffles.
Well, let's before we get into talk about this week's episode, Bala, since you weren't here last week, any thoughts on episode 2?
I feel like episode 2 was a little slower. I know one complaint we always had season 1, like Will wasn't always perfect. So see like episode 2, where it's just like him ruffling everyone's feather, just trying to get on out of the mud. I think it definitely was a little better than episode 1, but it hasn't really captured it. But I feel like episode 3 definitely did that for me. Okay. So if I had to rate it, I'd say 7 out of 10.
For episode 2 or episode 3?
For episode 2. Okay. Definitely.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think what we've come to get used to this first couple episodes is they're just kind of getting us back into the rhythm of the show, and they've got a lot of story they have to get through before they can start getting into the, I guess, more juicier stories or the things they want to talk about. But what's funny is I was watching some of the previews or some of the before the season aired, and some of those sort of trailers and stuff like that. And I remember one of the trailers was like Will saying, the whole thing has changed. This thing can't stand. My whole life is different now. And then first season of season 2, it's like, okay, I'm back in the house. Everything's fine. Yeah. They were setting up this thing, and then they're like, nope, let's resolve it in one episode.
Resolved in 45 minutes.
Yeah. But like I said,
I'm sorry.
If they're getting through this quickly with this stuff, they must have some big stuff.
Yeah, maybe they got some better stuff in the store. We'd be optimistic.
Yeah, I was gonna say the producer's like, yo, remember what this show is called, Bel-Air. Like, come on, get to the point.
yeah, absolutely. All right, well, let's get into this episode. I think the biggest kind of story thread, obviously, that went through the whole episode was, of course, Carlton trying to come to terms with the demands by everybody and himself to, essentially, protest and show support for this fired teacher. And that's where a storyline ran through, and we saw that basically everybody in the episode was kind of putting their demands upon him, right? Mm-hmm. They wanted stuff out of him and him to represent, himself in a certain way. And he was kind of just trying to play the person pleaser. He was trying to make Will happy. He was trying to make his new maybe girlfriend happy. Trying to balance all that out. And we saw that combined with him being weaned off his medication and the anxiety cropping up, and ultimately came to a head at the actual protest when they did the walkout. And now, Will's doing his own thing, and Carlton's trying to find the right balance between acquiescing the protesters and also not completely him hampering his chances for this Founders Award. What do we think of Carlton's overall development this episode and the overall protest storyline? Are we buying it? Are we happy with it? How do we think this went?
I thought it was interesting. I really liked Will's the saying he said when he talked about how, like, if they're okay with us doing this, then we're not really making a impact, or it's kind of defeating the purpose, because the whole purpose is to come ruffle some fellers. It's kind of like how when people were blocking streets during the whole BLM movement, and it was like, yes, it was kind of crazy, like people trying to get to work, but it's like, the point was you're in a situation where you're trapped, or like you're uncomfortable, and like you have no way to go. So like, how do you handle that? What do you do? So it's kind of that same mindset here that we'll have, where it's like we're supposed to be making these people, kind of put their neck against the wall, or kind of get them in a hard place, where it's like make them, have to make a decision, or make them uncomfortable enough where it's like these people are clearly upset about something. Let's hear them out. But if it's, you guys can do this, and like as long as no fellows get ruffled, or this doesn't happen, you're good to go. Then at the end of the day, the school is going to be comfortable. So I see the conflict there, and I like that Will kind of stood up against that. So I thought the protest was cool. Like I enjoyed this episode. I was a little more captivated than I thought it was going to be based on the protest. I thought it was going to be a little boring, but it was cool to see them balance everything, and then Ashley kind of being at the forefront with she being the reason all this started. But I did feel for Carlton this episode. Like it was obvious that, like, he was off anxiety medicine last episode. This episode, the protest, it was obvious that was going to be like the centerfold, but it didn't really take away from me how much I felt from him towards the end, because like Dave mentioned, he was trying to be a people pleaser. He had people in his ears from all sides, and like that would give anybody anxiety. So like the timing was just crazy because like right when he gets off his medication, it's freaking the worst scenario for him in the world. So I felt for him, and I felt bad at the end that he wasn't able to kind of deliver the speech that they were planning on him. It did kind of remind me of last season a little bit, where he was supposed to help Lisa with her song, but his anxiety got to him, and Will had to come and kind of save the day. So it was very similar to this. I was like, oh, they're gonna kind of repeat that story beat where Carlton gets anxious over a situation, Will steps in and saves the day. They
Right.
did, but it wasn't as thank you, Will. It was a little bit of tension in Carlton's eyes. He was watching Will, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh, at first I thought he was gonna be like, oh, Will save me, it's okay. But it was like he was watching it like,
Yeah.
this is still in my moment. One thing I thought was did he think he was still in his moment, or was it just him being anxious, or I don't know what was up with that look he gave?
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be quite pleased with Will this time, but we'll talk about that in the predictions.
Okay,
Yeah, but he did
okay,
not seem happy about that at all, because ultimately this whole protest is on Carlton, right? And what
yeah.
people do at the protest
Yeah.
is on him. So,
Mm.
what'd you think, Bala?
I was like, I can understand, like Gyasi said, I can understand Carlton's big dilemma in this episode, because it's just like this whole time everyone's thinking this man Carlton is just a butt kisser, like an Uncle Tom, willing to sell out his own people for like power himself. And this is his one chance he could just escape from all the allegations and really help his like people. And it's kind of hard to be in the position where, like you said, everyone's in his ear. You got a chance to go to Princeton, really get that dream he's been chasing, as well as like get the acceptance from the people he's been creating, like his peers, especially from his black peers. And I think with this moment, it's just like Will doesn't really care whose feather he ruffled, because he's in this whole I'm going back to my West Philly roots. Like I don't really care. And now Carlton feels like he lost that one chance to really like get everyone's acceptance, like, and not be seen as this like kiss ass, or just like the white man's like but toy. I don't know how else to describe it like a nice way, but I can see why Carlton kind of feels like, damn, it wasn't even supposed. I feel like the thing is Carlton had a little moment of selfish when he's supposed to be selfless, and that kind of just screwed him in the end. While Will's like, at this point, like, I don't care who I like screw over as long as the points getting made.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the problem with Carlton is he's trying to grow and develop as a person, and demonstrate, I guess, support for things that he isn't usually supported. But I think it goes against what he personally believes, or at least personally wants, to the degree that it's like he's all show and no tell, so to
Hell,
speak.
yeah,
He's not going to be able to back up what he's saying. He's saying the things that he thinks people want to hear, and he doesn't really believe in it himself to the degree where he's willing to make those sacrifices needed to demonstrate to the degree that other people expect of him, as opposed to
Yeah.
if he were just honest with the people around him and said, listen, I don't want to protest. My career, my life and career is more important than this. If he had been honest in that regard, I think, but he doesn't want to let anyone down. He's trying to develop this new persona in himself. And I think
yeah,
push come to shoves, he just wasn't there personally at that ready. Like Will is,
Yeah.
Will is ready to go and do everything, from that, West Philly style. But
Yeah.
again, it's not inherent in Carlton.
I
Yeah.
was gonna say, I feel like with Carlton, it's like he wants to be the safe bet, but in moments like this, you don't want a safe bet because you're end up going please no one, and it's just like, again, you have this girl you're trying to impress looking at you for help, and you basically are just saying, I can't help you, and you don't know how to like verbalize, like really say it verbally, and you always depend on like anxiety medication or drugs to help you like get that kind of confidence. But in just moments like this, you don't have anything, and you don't have no anxiety medication. You'll have like Lisa in your corner. It's just now all eyes on you. What are you going to do? And I
Yeah.
think with Carlton crumbling, alliteration, see what I did there. With Carlton crumbling, it's kind of like I feel like this is kind of the step that unravels him and going back to his season one Carlton ways, going back to villain mode.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. And I do think I will say that not that I like that Will how Will was acting, but I always complain that Will is kind of like this perfect character who doesn't do any wrong. Even when he does do wrong, it's like wrong in the right kind of way, like with the basketball. Like he won the game at the end of the day. Like he had to do that. But in this situation though, he really wasn't taking into consideration how Carlton might be feeling. Like I thought it was, they specifically had the scene where Uncle Phil talks to him, says, Carlton is off his medicine. Be wary of that. Be aware. If there's anything's out the ordinary, please let me know. And
Mhm.
Will heard him and said, I accept that, or he understood, but like, he was still pushing Carlton, you got this. This is on you. Or you good speech. Yeah, that
Yeah,
makes sense. Like, it wasn't that moment of, he didn't really take into consideration what Carlton was going through. Which is why I kind of related to Carlton's episode, because I feel like it's the same way, like, I'll be put in situations where people don't realize like my perspective, or like, it may be hard when you're in the middle of things. So it's like, I don't know. I definitely get where Carlton's coming from, and I like that, not that how Will was acting, but I like that he wasn't perfect with everything. Like he could have improved, and like he didn't handle the situation the best way, and it wasn't until the end where he understood like Carlton was going through something and tried to save the day, but we see that may not be as gravy as we think.
yeah,
Well, I think it kind of goes down to if Will is going to have character flaws. The character flaws is that he thinks about himself, right? He puts himself
yeah,
Yeah,
first over everyone
yeah,
else, his family and his friends on the basketball team, his team. It's about him first. And so I think that's probably, if we're going to see an arc with him, it's getting over that selfishness and developing more of a team spirit, more of a family dynamic with this, group. Because if he had really cared about Carlton and,
yeah,
his concerns about this, I think he would have been like, okay, fine, we made our point, guys. All right, let's go back in. Let's whatever.
exactly.
But
Or
he's like, nope.
even like I would have said like even telling Lisa or like his interests like yo Carlton has anxiety problems like let's not just put so much pressure. Let's try like
yeah,
meet him halfway. Like even if
yeah,
he doesn't have to be the face of it, why don't we be the face of it? Like have that speech instead of putting all that pressure on Carlton or even saying Carlton, okay, you people are looking at you to give the speech, but why don't you find a way to give a speech that meets the like
yeah.
like I forgot the teachers like school board halfway. I forget the
Yeah.
name of like yeah.
I think it was a situation where like you said, it could have been met in the middle. Like I don't think that them just giving up would have been good, but he should have like set Carlton down like, hey, are you okay to do this? If not, we can find another solution. Because giving in wasn't the answer, but also just putting everything on Carlton and not looking at things from his perspective wasn't, like you said, it wasn't showing that he cared about the family. I think he does care about Carlton, obviously, and Lisa and everyone, but his kind of Will's. Now, I don't want to say ego or self-centered, but it's more so like he's not looking at the big picture. Like his end goals are more important than kind of like what everyone else is going through. But it's not that he thinks that, it's just how it's coming across. Like he doesn't go, this is more important than Carl's anxiety, but it's just he's not realizing that how much is affecting him because he's so focused on the end results.
Well, he probably thought the movement and the actual what they were trying to do is more important than Carlton's personal issues and disagreements about it. And so it's like it had been started, he was going to finish it.
Exactly.
So, I did do some research, and private schools actually have no obligation to offer or support student protest, whereas in like public schools, there's more of that because obviously public schools are government funded. So
okay.
Yeah.
But I'll be interesting to see the fallout from this.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I guess they went into the situation with Miss Hughes and how she was let go. So I mean, I'm glad they gave more details there as opposed to like, oh, you gave a book, you got fired. But
right, they called into question a little bit about the motivations there in terms of what she was doing and her, her saintliness or whatever you want to call it, with regard. Obviously, she's trying to push an agenda, which is perfectly valid, but if it's the school board doesn't want it to be done that way. I mean, as someone who teaches myself, like I have to follow rules and regulations with regard to how I teach certain material, and there's certain processes that come from things that have to be approved for being taught, right? And it's you have to kind of toe that line with regard to what it is you want to teach and what it is you're required to teach. So but they did call into question that, but we'll see again, how will that play out. Will have their this show been for something, right? Will have their efforts maybe result in her being rehired. Well, I know considering everybody spoke very highly of her and obviously what she meant to Ashley, I would hope so, but I don't know.
You could see like in the last 2 episodes how even though Miss Hughes was trying to be a kind of guiding figure to Ashley and was a guiding figure to a lot of black students. Like there was that one hanging white girl in the back, just looking like, oh. So it's good to see like you can see probably. I feel like one good moment that this show might have is like Ashley confronting the other students, just like trying to get their support, but they'd be like, yeah, nah, Miss Hughes kind of a bitch. How phony private school girls can be like. Well, I don't know. That's just my 2 cents.
Yeah. All right. Well, like I said, we'll see how that pans out. Obviously, Carlton had some, trying to develop that close relationship with the head of the Black Student Union, Yasmin, I believe. Yeah, that's her name. So I wonder if there's going to be a future, obviously, with that relationship, obviously, considering how everything went down. I don't know if that's something where Yasmin will just not be interested anymore because of, Carlton not going forward or not going through with kind of the plan. So we'll see.
Well, I hope not. I mean, I hope that they're having a mature conversation. Carlton will express, I suffer from anxiety, and it was a big moment for me, and I was really off making. I don't know. I hope he doesn't go that route where she's just like, "Oh, you failed us," and he doesn't. A lot of shows do where he just won't say what the audience think. Like, just tell her he was going through something, bro. But I mean, Carlton still did a lot. Like he hosted the meetup and the congregation to discuss the plan at his mansion. Like, so I feel like he still contributed a lot, even though he didn't do the speech at the end. I mean, him and Yasmin were the one who had that meeting with the faculty leaders.
Yeah. But you gotta remember, we're talking about a drama here. This is like
that's what I'm saying. It's TV. It's TV. I hope they don't do it.
I know they're still are 17-year-olds. So
Facts.
We'll see how good their willingness to kind of show their maturity is. But
probably will.
I'm trying to be optimistic. Let's see. Let's see next week. Next week we'll be on the podcast and y'all will say I told you so.
I was gonna say I got my best rate. I'm like, okay, what can I do to brag in Gyasi's face?
Just mature conversations. Just tell her, Carlton. She should understand.
Carlton
Yeah.
don't go outside.
Like he almost got some play, my boy. I was like, okay, so she's feeling him a little bit, you know.
I saw that. I felt like the faculty me kind of like shifted that because you see how Carlton was just trying like, oh, it's all good. You know, we got the protest. We're not gonna get suspended. And she was like, yo, Carlton, stop capping. Tell him the whole truth. So you can see she
Oh
was trying
yeah.
to get him. And the
Yeah,
whole
yeah.
like banner moment, yeah, I feel like the banner moment was just like, damn, she just officially got turned off. So Carlton got to play some big moves to get like back in her good graces.
We gonna see.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about Will's story. He was kind of almost a second supporting player in this episode. Really, we didn't focus too much on him and his kind of continuing storyline with Doc, which was interesting, because I think, the supporting characters, the non-Will characters do have things that are interesting in their lives that we could probably develop a little more into. But let's talk about the story beats that happened specifically with Will. More specifically, obviously we found out his team doesn't, harbors some resentment towards him, but the coach is trying to keep the team together, even though despite Will's his sort of go forthness, but the coach is trying to be the level-headed guy. So nice to see that. I guess he's trying to work through it, and the team wants to go to the championship. So interesting to see that. He's also found an ally in Todd. Todd seems to be someone who is supporting both him and the cause. So that was nice to see that. And we also saw a little bit of Will and Lisa, sort of some jealousy there, right? Because somebody's trying to mac on Lisa, and Will is not really appreciating it too much. But other than that, we didn't see too much of Will's story. We do know, obviously, that Phil is a little bit worried about Doc. He's not totally bought in at the same level that Will is, and we need to have Will's mom chime in. Maybe I wonder if we'll see her maybe next in a future episode talking about Will's future. She was obviously a pretty prevalent person last season, so since they've mentioned her, maybe she will make an appearance. But other than that, what do we think about Will's overall story beats this episode?
I feel like been a good setup. Like Phil's kind of trepidation of like how Doc is moving and how everything looks too good to be true, especially after. I'm thinking of it not only just by itself, but also how Will was kind of moving immediately after his father, like the whole father saga went. Because I think Will's looking for a father figure or someone who really not only believes him, but also came from his side of the field, like hood, or his side of the tracks. So Doc looks like that at first. Like he's saying all the right things, he's making all the good moves. Plus, you got a little Jackie in the side because also between the deal. And I guess Uncle Phil's just like, nah, I've been through this once before. I'm not trying to go through this again. Especially because we know Will. He's impulsive. He likes
Yeah.
to he's a people pleaser in himself, but he's a people pleaser who don't care who said he's ruffled.
Yeah.
So he wants acceptance, but from all the wrong places.
And if he
Yeah.
does
I
anything
think
that doesn't please anybody, it's that West Philly style. Blame it on
yeah.
West Philly.
I think it was interesting. For me, when they were talking about how like if you protest, you will be suspended in addition to your extracurricular activities were put on hold. I thought they were gonna play more into the basketball aspect of that because he won't be able to play on the team and X, Y, and Z and the repercussions. So in my mind, I was thinking that
Right.
was gonna lead to him playing AAU, which it probably will. I assume next episode he probably will get suspended from the team. But
Right.
but for me, the reason I'm calling out now and not predictions is because there was really no hesitation with there. It wasn't like I would have expected a moment where he was like kind of contemplating like, well, damn, I will be letting the team down if I do this protest. But for him, it was just like, nah, like forget that. I'm doing it. So so yeah, I wonder how that's gonna come into play later. He did just promise his friend that like he was gonna be there for the team X, Y, and Z, and now it looks like
Right.
I'm sure that's gonna be repercussion. That's probably gonna be even more of a feud between with Doc, like because that's gonna be his only option. He's like, well, I'll go play AAU for Doc, X, Y, and Z,
Right.
tension drama. So, you know,
I was
Yeah,
gonna
I think
add
I
the
think
whole
well, I was gonna say, I mean, on that point, I mean, he cares about the team, but he probably has already done his work to impress Doc, right? Doc was impressed last week.
Yeah.
Doc's probably not going to go to another high school basketball game. He's probably convinced, right? So really, he's just trying to, make the team win. It'd be nice feather in the cap, but I think the work with Doc has already been done. But
Yeah.
Bala?
Yeah, I was going to add the whole fact that the team did say they were going to come out for the protest too. So the team already shows they got Will's back. So it's kind of like,
Yeah,
if anything happens, it might be like above their head. Like, okay,
right.
yeah, because
You're not going to suspend the entire team.
exactly, especially when they're so close to the Western like championships.
Right.
Yeah. And that's what I'd like, just a life for me. That's where unity comes together. Because I mean, Will was right when they were like, "Are they gonna suspend every black person on campus?" That would look insane. Just the optics of that. So like, same with the team. Like, if one person, two people, have issue with something, and they're the only ones that do something about it. It's easy to suspend those two players and keep it going. But when people really come together and believe in something, and it's for like an actual, serious cause, that's where unity comes into play. Because that's why I'm glad they kind of emphasize that, where like, that people came together and they can actually make change.
Yeah.
100%. 100%.
Okay. Great. Well, let's jump into, I think Hill had a decent
Oh my
chunk
gosh.
of story.
Yeah. I thought we
Yeah.
when it felt that way.
Yeah.
Well, in terms of like other storylines that were developed, I think in terms of screen time, she probably had a chunk of screen time that was
Yeah.
equivalent, significant, at least for her little side story. Trying to get, again, making herself known, and the dynamic relationship between her and her co-owner, not co-owner. I mean, she doesn't even own it. Hill doesn't own it. The other person owns it, but just trying to express her level of authority within the kind of the company. And we see her try to engage with her co I don't even, what do they call, what is it, like, she's the owner. They're not co-owners.
I don't know.
Her boss, I guess.
Partner. They're a partner.
Okay, let's call them partners.
That
Yeah.
works.
But again, I think
she's yes.
it is an interesting, again, like the educating of Hillary is continuing on, where it's like, yeah, you don't make deals for somebody else in a business relationship like that. You don't promise something to the sponsor that you can't back up.
Yep.
And then coming to the person's place of business, like, her partner was fully in the right to tell Hill, like, I'm at work right now, and that's the reason we haven't chatted. And I guess I know there's that power dynamic there, and she doesn't probably respect Hill as much as she should, but there is still like workplace business dynamics that exist there that Hill has to somewhat respect and own up.
Yeah. What you think, Bala?
Oh, I was gonna say you can go first, Gyasi, because I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of over it. I love Coco Jones, but I'm kind of over Hillary's art. Like,
yeah, I love Coco Jones too, and I'm glad that they're giving her something to do. But yeah, I'm not too invested in this arc. Like when it was on screen, I was like, I'd rather get back to like what Will was doing, or even it's funny because Ashley's arc last season wasn't interesting, and now I'm more interested in how she's reacting. And Hillary's arc is like, I mean, I get like what they're going for, but just seeing these like, these brand deal conflicts, and I want to work with. Shout out to Simply Lemonade product placement though, because it was so. I don't know if this happened to you guys, but when I was watching it on Peacock, a commercial immediately following that was a Simply Lemonade spike.
Yes.
Yeah, so I was like, wow, they not slick at all. Like they really. And then she was like, oh, I love Simply. I'm like, all right, so like, shout out to product placement.
Synergy there, advertising synergy.
But I'm not gonna lie, they're not paying me, but it is a good drink. That's my go-to spiked Sosa now.
A sponsor.
Yeah, Bel-Air podcast, hit me up. But yeah, so I'm not too invested in that storyline. I hope they do something soon that kind of catches my interest. Like just the beefing and the politics with the brands and like the house. It's not really doing it for me right now. I see what Dave's saying. Like I do think Karichi, they're making her more of a villain than kind of what's really going on. Like, he was like, oh, she's not spending X, Y, and Z. I'm like, man, she brought you out your contract. That was what, like $30K, like $50. It was a good chunk of money that Karichi's character had to had to throw down in order to buy you the contract, buy a house. So like she did you a huge favor. So I mean, maybe work for her a little more. I get she's a little airheaded, but I don't think she's as big of a villain as the show is kind of painting her right now.
Yeah, I mean, compared to the guy last season where they were just like going all over the place to make him like the bad.
Yeah,
Her like the worst she did was trying to get at Jazz, who she didn't even know was dating like Hillary.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I mean, again, it's not like the most engaging storyline, especially when you have all these somewhat more significant
yeah.
storylines going on. It's kind of just like, am I supposed to care?
her,
uh,
her and Jazz is better. I enjoy watching her and Jazz banter more than her and dealing with House.
yeah,
Yeah, I was gonna say last week's episode with the whole car thing, I was more invested. I was like, yeah, because it's kind of talking about Hillary's character, like how she's willing to kowtow over like whatever Karuchi says for because I'm not even that invested because I don't even remember her name. Damn. But
Yeah, I can't remember her name either, but I will find
I think
out.
it's Liz,
Is it?
something
I
like
don't
that.
think it's
it's an
Liz,
L.
but it's similar.
It's an L. But it's
I
just
had it written
like
down last season or last
we keep
episode.
we should have. Well, I
Yeah,
should
I
have
do.
because like
I mean, I respect Karuchi's come. The fact that she's on this show, like Karuchi's came a long way. Like especially for where she started as like Chris Brown's girlfriend, but she's really built a life of her own and started getting
oh
into
for
acting and
sure.
taking it seriously. Like I like seeing Karuchi on screen. I'm like, oh look at her, man. She's really out here doing it. But I'm like, just give her a little bit of storyline, her and Hillary.
I'm not gonna lie. I'd rather see Karushi than Young Miami on BMF because that was
Oh yeah,
smack.
I heard
It,
that was
it
not it.
it was worth seeing it live. Like, but
Ivy. Her name is Ivy. Yeah.
okay, so
Ivy.
we
Yes,
were
thank you.
completely wrong. So Ivy is poison. But yeah, it's interesting seeing Ivy and seeing us go through the same kind of topic for 3 episodes instead of doing something new. Like, and hopefully, probably with this whole going through Ivy to get another sponsorship deal. Even though she verbatim said, I can't be seen sponsoring another thing because it's a brand and my face is a brand. I can't risk that. And even though you can probably buy out or just do contra deals, like she's not in the place to do that. I
And
think
she went through with the deal anyway. Like she literally said, "We're gonna do the deal," and I'm like, "Here we go."
I was gonna say I feel like Hillary's definitely gonna get a brand back on that from like multiple sides. So it's hopefully it's interesting and it will kind of like spike up my like investment in the story if it's because right now it's just like same song different episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about Phil then. He had some kind of interesting story beats. Obviously, he was trying to get into his firm again, and I guess they're not really eager to have him back. And he's asking Jeffrey to look into that for him. And Jeffrey's doing some sneaking about and trying to slyly get into some files or something like that. So interesting to see what's going on there. So we can talk a little bit about that as well, and Jeffrey's kind of character this season or this episode. And then,
What
of
was going
course,
on there?
I
Oh,
don't
go
know. I think
Okay,
they're trying to set up something more devious than it is, but
okay,
I'm curious what
okay.
he's trying to do.
you know my thoughts on this? I'm thinking it has something to do with Jeffrey's son because they've been hyping up the son like for a while since like episode 8, episode 7 of season 1. So I'm thinking this is some build up going towards Jeffrey's son, and he's like, "What does Phil know?"
Mm.
Yeah, I was very curious. So when Jeffrey was there, Phil told him to check into something. I didn't catch what he was telling him to check into. Was it a? It was a. Who was it? You guys remember?
It was a mix of Doc and the firm because I know
Okay.
like he was asking about like Doc and stuff, but
Okay, so I assumed it was Doc, but I looking back, I'm trying to think of someone else. So, but then it looked like he was like checking the office for bugs or something. Like it's like he's been. I don't know if it was the case, but like after Jeffrey left, he started searching, like looking around, and I was like, "Isn't this Phil's office?" So I was trying to figure out what exactly was going on.
he was on some 007 stuff right quick.
Yeah, like he was. Did Jeffrey bug his office? I was like, "What is going on?" But no, I
Yeah,
guess
I think Phil probably has a little bit of suspicion, but he's not ready to like obviously, damage a
Especially,
relationship he just rebuilt, right?
yep.
yeah.
But
Because
I think
he
he's
said like, "You're welcome back." He was like, I apologize," and he, like they went right back to business. But I guess that scene was to show that like it's not as exactly the same as it was last season.
Oh, exactly. Especially and do you blame them? Like after a blowback where you just basically just said you're not part of the family, you just like a worker for me. You're not gonna be 100% back like right away. So of
Yeah,
course there's gotta be a whole lot of work to be done to rebuild that trust.
yeah.
yeah. I hope every season he fires him at the end of the season, then rehires him on
Oh
the
my
first episode.
A running gag.
A
Yeah,
running joke. You're fired, Jeffrey. There's gonna be only so much time. Jeffrey wins the lottery and then reveal like Will kind of faked it.
yeah. And then Jeffrey hires Phil because Phil's looking for a job.
Yep.
You could be my butler or whatever. Not butler. What's the name? What do they call him? He's like
House
House
manager?
manager.
house
Yeah.
manager. Yes, of course, of course. Yeah.
Because we
So
don't got butlers in 2023.
I think they still exist, but I don't know.
I think they
I'm not
so
rich.
ushers. I think they're called. I know the White House butlers and now ushers. I think.
Are they? Okay, that's good. Glad to see the update.
Yeah.
Um, but Phil shows pretty strong a trust in Will by bringing him in on the whole Carlton and his anxiety med. So Phil is really putting a lot of trust and faith into Will. That's a good sign.
Yeah. Also, see, I think it's them recognizing how close Carlton and Will has become since like Will first moved in.
Yeah,
Because you can see like Carlton and Will are basically, I don't, I don't know what's a good comparison, but they're just like you can see they're kind of at the hip now. They're going to clubs together with Jazz. Will's playing wingman for Carlton, so it kind of
right.
is a whole testament on how far they've come.
Yeah, absolutely. Since we're talking about Will really quick, him and Lisa, obviously he's jealous about Lisa. Do you see him actually wanting to get back with Lisa, or is he just doesn't want anybody else to be with Lisa?
My prediction is I think it's clear this new girl is gonna play him in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah,
Um, I'll be very surprised if she's very into him or loving. The fact that she's Doc cousin makes me think she's a part of the setup. And I think
right.
in game of the show, it seems obvious it's Will and Lisa. So he's gonna realize that she's a genuine girl, X, Y, and Z. So yeah, I think he's gonna be coming back to her, but I don't think very soon. But they're definitely laying the seeds for that jealousy and that I need this girl back type of vibes.
Right.
Yeah. I feel like right now it's like Will wants to have his cake and eat it too. He wants to be like, yo, I'm a player. Like I can play the field, all this, sir. I'm the man's man. And then when he sees Troy kind of just scooping in, trying to catch feelings, as well as Jackie feeling the kid, of course, I think it's gonna end up burning him back on him. And maybe this will lead in season 3 too. But for right now, I feel like Lisa's gonna get turned off real quick, especially if she sees Will and Jackie together.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. We'll see how that evolves. The only other character who had any sort of screen time this week was Aunt Viv, or in terms of her trying to sort of get her art management on track now that she's sort of left Reed, I guess, or left that office.
Mhm.
Ended that relationship. She gets Lisa involved in helping her out, and Lisa seems very eager to do that. And that's about it for Viv's piece of the storyline this week. Again, I think like a lot of the storylines, their bits and pieces are building up towards something, but it's really difficult to get invested in her storyline because it's like really far removed what I think most of us deal with, right? And most of us don't have like art deals that we're trying to manage,
Yeah.
unless you guys are doing something I'm not aware of. But
I would. Um, but I
but
think
I
what
mean, do you care
also
about Viv's story at all?
I think what also hurts it personally is we don't see Reed like, and
Right.
I think that's probably because of like schedule conflicts or anything. I don't know the official
Uh,
reason, but it doesn't help having a whole okay Reed's ducking me, or I have conflict with Reed if you don't see the person you have conflict with. So, and I think this is one of those cases maybe recasting would be better because, let's be honest, you got a well-known actor to play this kind of flirtatious role, and
yeah.
Yeah, if you're having him be a big part of the conflict of season two, and you don't see him, what's the point of the conflict?
Yeah, for me, I think as far as investment in the storyline, I don't like that I'm not as invested in Aunt Viv's storyline or Hillary's storyline because I really enjoy those characters. When for me, Will's storyline, the team, Carlton, Uncle Phil, and Doc, and then Jeffrey, like when those things are going on, and even Ashley's storyline now with dealing with her teacher loss. Those are I'm kind of more engaged in, and then when Hillary is arguing with House or Aunt Viv is art problem, it's more so like, can we get back to the more interesting parts? But I do
Right.
have hope that the show will kind of do something different with it. I think they're kind of treading water right now because, like you said, we haven't seen Reeves' character come back yet. We just seen, Aunt Viv deal with the repercussions, but she's got Lisa as her assistant now. I wonder what they're gonna do with her storyline. So I'm curious to see where they go with it because I feel like they know they have to do something interesting with it. They can't just be, static. So I'm curious to see where her storyline and where Hillary's storyline goes. But for now, like I said, I'm more so like wish we can get back like what's up with Doc. I wish there was time. I would have rather seen like Doc's backstory or like, see what's going on that side of the world when those things was on.
Yeah. Honestly,
Yeah.
I would have rather seen more Ashley. Like this was
Yeah.
a big part. This episode was a big Ashley storyline because she's the one that said, and to just have her at the end, like, oh yeah, she just looked in the mirror, like, oh my god, they really did it. I feel like this was a shining moment where you could see Ashley says, yo, I want to be about this activist life. Like I'm not just talking the talk, I'm walking the walk too. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
this could have been a big moment. Feels like a drop ball.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think they've done a great deal of story development and character development for Ashley, and it's great to see that. But yeah, she was kind of reserved to a minor supporting role this
Yeah.
episode. But I mean, they were touching base with her. They were, she was in scenes and
Yeah.
her story was developed. And obviously, she's got her own conflicts that she has to deal with, and she's in middle school. So it's a little bit more detrimental for her, I think, to be sort of in a position where vulnerability, I think, than perhaps the high schoolers. But yeah, like with all these little story beats, again, with going back to Viv and Hill, they probably will develop into something more interesting. But this, the show and the episodes, because they have to divide up all of the episodes
Mhm.
based on different characters, it really makes it difficult to latch on. But again, they did spend a lot of time on Carlton, a lot of time on the protest subplot, and it was the driving force through the entire episode. So they are focusing more on specific storylines and characters, but if they really want us to get invested in Hill and Viv's storyline, they need to like spend more time on it and make the stakes more
Yeah.
tangible.
Yeah. I agree. I agree.
But
Oh, right.
I mean, as far as like other story beats and other characters, were there any ones that kind of popped out to you that you thought were interesting, or any sort of character moments that you want to highlight?
I like that. Then you guys mentioned, but I like that. I was surprised a lot of the school was on board with the protest. And he was like, "Yo, swim team." They said when they said we're canceling extracurriculars, I thought that was going to be like a no one's down, but he was
Right.
like, "Swim team's still down." I was like, "All right, swim team, you don't care? All right, bet." Swim
Hey, yo,
team's still
swim team's
down.
holding it down.
Yeah, the basketball team was still with it, and I like that Will's friend. I saw some comment on the subreddit. They were like, "Why are all the white people on the show racist?" And I was like, "All right, come on now, like that's not the case." I was like, Will's friend has been down since day one. He called Will out on his BS when he was being a little selfish, but I really like his character a lot. That he came out supported, and he even was like, Miss Hughes was a favorite teacher of mine as well. So like, I'm not gonna just stand by and watch. So I like that he
Right.
came out. I hope their relationship doesn't get strained, even though it seems like it's building towards that because Will's obviously it's gonna affect the team somehow that this protest. But yeah, I
Yeah.
want to call that out. I really did enjoy that, and I like the protest aspect, and it was cool to see the show touch on it and have the students come together.
Oh, agreed. And I also think it's just like I feel like most of the cool conflict with the whole protest was more on Carlton than it was on Will, if that makes sense. Because Will obviously has shown himself to be the likable, down to earth, like kind of what you see is what you get. I speak my mind kind of energy, which the BSU respects. So I already knew there wasn't gonna be any conflict with that.
Yeah,
But it was more on like Carlton, who's always been, as you see in season one, let his white teammates say the N word to Bobby Shmurda and all of that. So of course it's gonna be a more culture clash with him.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is I like that what was it they called out that yeah, so there was curriculum concerns, and I think Ashley's character said, well, not character, but Ashley said that there was something going on last year where we signed a protest or some kind of formal complaint was made that the curriculum wasn't very inclusive of the student body that was there, and they said that Miss Hughes, like, she kind of took matters in her own hands because the curriculum wasn't being updated. So I respect that they kind of threw that out there because yes, it's like there's policies and like stuff that needs to be followed, but also if something radical doesn't swing or something doesn't happen, will change ever be made? Even today, I know Tulsa, Oklahoma, there's the Tulsa attacks was just put into the curriculum after like Watchmen came out like 2019, and this was took place decades ago. So at what point is something gonna swing? Like they're just now teaching the history of like what happened in Oklahoma, and now it's like. So I understand why she did what she had to do, and I like that the show kind of called attention to it.
Not to mention on the flip side, you just have what places like not only Oklahoma but like Alabama and stuff, just saying
Mhm.
we're trying to cut off the curriculum. We're taking out African American like
Yeah,
culture. So it's just like if you want to teach at school, how much are you restricted? That's not really like you say it's in the best interest, but more like you want to just, I guess, shout out voices or shout out important parts of like history, especially Black history.
yeah,
Yeah.
and this is such a common thing. I mean, even like with the whole critical race theory debate, how like, oh, we're just putting in schools what like the whole story, or like more so like, like we're not hiding parts of history. We're gonna explain like, this is how, certain groups made their wealth, this is what happened, X, Y, and Z, just the whole thing and not kind of hiding it. So like it's cool that the show is touching on that with like you mentioned, Vala, with the banning To Kill a Mockingbird and bailing on these books just because like it's giving like we're trying to hide the past and not like we need to realize where we've been in order to see where we're going. Like we can't make progress if we don't understand the things that kind of were in place that got us to this point. You can't,
Yeah,
if the doctor doesn't know where the wound is, there's no way they can do surgery or heal it. So I like that the show called attention to it because it is a serious issue, and like you said, it's still happening today, like with curriculums getting banned and stuff not being updated. So I like Miss Hughes, she had to take matters in her own hands, and because the system was just moving too slow.
exactly. Those who fail to learn from history are doomed to repeat it, and Miss Hughes wasn't
Yeah,
playing that mess. And
yeah,
like final note, I guess on it is like it's kind of interesting because I saw that comment in the subreddit about like how white people were thinking all white people in like the show is racist. It's kind of like we're talking about a private school. Like Bel-Air is kind of culture, subculture, and just like mindset is kind of removed from a lot of other places. It's not going to be like in your face, like, oh my God, he called me the N word. It's more like, so racist is just like we want to upkeep the status quo, and anything that kind of like doesn't fit our status quo or fits like what's should be, I guess, socially norm, we don't like that. And what's not socially norm is people having protests about like Black teachers commenting on what Black culture really is instead of just trying to hide it and trying to see like, okay, we, yeah, you know what I mean.
yep,
Yeah. Yeah. No, good points all around. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, obviously, for change to happen, people have to be willing to make sacrifices and be willing to put themselves out there for sure. And I think perhaps in this instance, that could have been done maybe if the fellow teachers had backed her up, right? I
yeah,
mean, that's kind of like a thing. Hey, like we're all trying to get things taught here, and perhaps maybe she had been able to get some support from fellow teachers. Then you could have done things
yeah,
like teacher walkouts and strikes and all those sort of things that happen. But
Uh,
yep, yep,
it'll be definitely interesting to see how the fallout of the protest occurs and gets told next episode. One thing I was
yeah.
trying to look for before this conversation was like next week on Bel Air, but they don't do that anymore.
I
Yeah,
Oh
I
don't
didn't
man.
see I didn't
know.
see a trailer.
Yeah, except for the one trailer at the beginning. That's it. I haven't seen
That was
any.
that was I guess that was enough for the whole season.
Yeah, like these
Unfortunately.
streaming shows, they're just like they're not as worried about it, I guess.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
if you guys are ready, let's talk about predictions a little bit. Let's start with the fallout from the protest. What do you think is going to happen?
I definitely think Will obviously was at the centerfold. Of course, it's his show, pretty obvious, but he was the one that did the thing that people weren't supposed to do. So
Right.
he's gonna get the heat. It's gonna be a y'all are all good. I'm sure Connor and them, or not Connor, but Will's friend won't get banned from the team. Will's, I personally think this is a lead into Doc, and that's probably why he wants to focus on this story because the next couple episodes is gonna be like very Doc focused. He's off the
Yeah.
team now, and he needs to play basketball because he has ambitions and goals. And how is he going to play
Sure.
basketball for a reputable team or organization that's not Bel-Air? He's going to go with Doc. Only option,
Yeah.
Phil, Doc beef, and this is kind of fallout from it. But maybe I'm wrong. We're going to see where it goes.
I think he'll play with Doc regardless of whether or not anyone wants him to. I think he's going to
Yeah.
sneak around
Yeah.
and he's just going to play on this team and he's going to just look out for himself and he's going to get
Yep.
burned by it because he's going to be played by the Doc and played by
What if Doc?
Jackie and
What if Doc was just such a nice, like the show is just playing this for a loop, and Doc is just nice guy I just wanted to make sure the family was supported, and like it turns out he had everyone's best interest at heart. Wouldn't
I
that
know,
be
right?
hilarious?
I was gonna say if he did, why would you be searching about like how Will got to Philadelphia? Like
He's for the post game interview, he's trying to make sure he's educated. Who knows?
No, I think they're definitely playing up Doc to be the big bad for the
Yeah,
for the episode
definitely.
for the season.
Definitely. I hope it's more ambiguous. I hope it's not black and white, like he's trying to take advantage of the family's money. I hope it's Phil. I enjoy when there's separate ideologies, but it's not always right and wrong. Like it's just two
yeah,
separate ways of thinking, and it's not as black and white. Like I
Yeah.
said, I don't know if the show writers had that depth where they can handle that. It seems like they're playing Doc up to be some villain, but I would enjoy if Doc really thinks Will needs to do X, Y, and Z, and for actual reasons he believes, not like I'm just trying to take advantage of everybody.
exactly. Like actually play into that moral gray.
Yeah,
But
morally
we'll see.
gray.
Yeah. Any predictions on any of the other major characters' sub stories? I think any of them are
Well,
going to go anywhere.
I feel like with the whole with Will, I feel like this whole thing is going to affect his relationship with Carlton. With
Yeah.
Carlton, I definitely think he's going back into a drug relapse.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
going to be because you saw he just got publicly embarrassed. He couldn't handle the pressure, so
His
he's
parents,
going.
his parents are going to find out, right? And that's
Yeah,
what he specifically told Will. Don't tell my mom and dad.
but like Carlton's going to make out for himself.
Yeah. Do you guys think, when you're perspective, do you think Carlton will be upset at Will for taking over the spotlight, or will he realize that like someone had to do something because Carlton wasn't in a mental space to handle the situation at that point?
I feel like because Carlton's kind of blaming himself, he's going to like lash out at everyone else to hide his own insecurities.
Yeah, because at first I'm
Yeah.
like he's gonna be upset at Will, but I'm like, what was his best case scenario? If he knew he wasn't able to, is he gonna lie to himself and say I just needed 5 more minutes, or is he gonna be more mature and realize that like someone had to do something?
You
I think
saw the first thing
Carlton's gonna lash out at Will. I
I
can't
was
believe
gonna
he
say you
won't.
saw the first thing he said to Will was like, "Don't tell my parents." Obviously, Carlton was not thinking about the greater good at that moment.
Yeah.
Wait, I guess I see.
Beyond that, I mean, we didn't see any Jazz this episode, so they probably might do some more Jazz next week. I think they had previews that showed Jazz with Phil and at the house in the previews at the end of the first episode.
Yeah.
So we may visit Jazz next week because I think, yeah, like you guys said, that's a more interesting storyline than
Yeah.
her and Ivy.
And they
right?
hinted at it. They hinted at it when Hillary was talking to her mom about Jazz, and they're like, "Your dad has a different perspective on things. You got to talk to
Yeah.
him."
There's
Yeah.
definitely going to be some conflict there.
Yeah,
was
There's going to be
100%.
sparks. Somebody's going to get
Like,
thrown out of the house.
Yo.
oh my god, like that might have been like the build up to the season finale. Like, yo, I'm tired of this LA boyfriend that Hillary has. Throw her out of the house.
Yep. So yeah, that's more interesting. And then I am interested in what is going on with Viv's storyline, only because I wonder what is going to be the fallout of it, right? She's already got this sort of angst with Reed, but I'm like, until they give us more perspective on the stakes, I just don't know what to be worried about with her. Like, is her scholarship or whatever she is, her fellowship, at risk now? I mean, what are the stakes?
Yeah.
And then with Phil, I'm interested to see, like, he obviously wants to get back, and he's got Jeffrey doing some digging and stuff. So I think we'll see more of that. But again, it's a little bit too underdeveloped to even really like predict what direction it could go. I mean,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I assume he'll get his job back or whatever he was trying to do, or start his own firm. I don't know. He's very rich. He can do that.
Yeah.
I feel like it might either go forward for him or try to become a judge again,
Okay.
or even try like go for mayor. But with like Anna Viv, again, I think my biggest qualm about this whole storyline is we don't see Reed's perspective. It's kind of just like one-sided. So
Yeah. Well, the show, or not this show, but Fresh Prince prior was all about recasting people. So
yeah,
if they have to recast Reed, I'm sure they won't hesitate, because he wasn't like a huge character last season anyway. So people probably won't like even know or care that he was recast.
Yeah, I would like to see Reed for side things. That's a good point, because like I think I mentioned this last episode of the podcast, but they never showed him with bad intentions. He was flirty, he was a little mischievous, but he always, like, they made it known, like, on the plot, that he wanted Viv's best interest. He was like, I see you're a credible artist and you're not being appreciated enough. I'm doing what I'm doing to kind of push you to that level. So it is a little interesting that now it's like he's taking credit, and like they're kind of painting him as like someone with negative intentions, even though he was flirty. I don't think, at least from my perspective, they didn't write him as someone who like wanted bad for anybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's like none of the. Besides obviously the main villain who was in Miss Felly for like 5 minutes. I don't think there's anyone who's like legitimately like evil, right? I don't think we've been introduced to a straight evil villain character, have we?
I think Will's
Besides
dad may be the closest, even though he wasn't a straight villain, but he did get kind of violent and was kind
Okay.
of got aggressive, but it was enough where we still kind of like feel bad for him. But I think I don't know, yeah, I think he may be the closest, but Doc's probably up next. Doc may be the first one that's like an actual villain, because like I don't think Will's dad was a villain, but he may be the closest.
He wasn't a good guy. Like, he was obviously a bad guy, but he wasn't like he wasn't actively trying to
to like hurt,
harm
like
Will.
bad
Like,
intentions.
he didn't. I mean, and to the degree that like you would think a villain would, right? Like, I've got evil machinations. Like, he's just a bad guy.
he was just an asshole.
Yeah.
The only villain, there is a villain actually on this show. It's Connor.
Oh,
I
thought you were going to say Carlton.
There you go. Okay.
Right,
yeah.
Yeah, Connor's the one that was truly just like no redeeming qualities, just trying to end everyone. Carlton was a villain. He was the antagonist in the first season, but he bounced back.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll see how all that pans out in next episode and beyond. Anything else you guys want to say before we sign off?
It would be crazy if they made Miss Hugh the villain.
Who?
Miss Tatiana's character, Miss Hughes. Yeah.
Oh, Miss Hughes. They made her the villain. Oh my gosh. It was kind of ominous when she showed up to the house. They were like, Miss Hughes is here. She was like, wow. I'm like, it's a little ominous, but yeah, that'd be. I don't think they'd do that. It's so funny hearing Ashley talk about Miss Hughes, and it's like she's actually talking about Ashley. Like, so crazy.
Everything relative.
Yeah. It's like, I know what you're going through, girl. I was you.
Yeah, I'm like, it's too meta for me. Like, it's too meta, but no.
You ever think about becoming a singer?
Now, this is one of my I think favorite episodes so far this season. Though I was pretty captivated. I'm excited to get back into Doc, man. I want to see what Doc got going on, and I want to see Uncle Phil kind of do his thing. Like, he's very strong-willed, and he will say how he feels. So I'm interested to see what's up with him, Jeffrey, and Doc, and see that feud come into play.
Yeah. Definitely 100%. Want to hear about more about Jeffrey. Hashtag give Jeffrey a show.
Give Jeffrey a spinoff.
That's right. All right, guys. Thanks so much for taking time out to chat with me today about this show and this episode. It's definitely looking interesting. I think it's intriguing. I'm excited about this season. Regardless, I saw some criticism on the subreddit about this season so far, but I don't. Is it as good as season one? Maybe not yet. But season one had something special about it because it was
Yeah.
The
a brand.
first.
It was a reinvention of the series, right?
Yeah.
But I still think this is a solid second season so far, and I'm interested to see how it goes out.
Yeah.
Same.
Thing.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, I've been Dave for Gyasi and Bala. This is Saved by the Bell Air After Show. We'll see you next week.